Laura.
Hi,
Hi, it's so great to have you on the podcast. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm all good. All good, good, good. I was just wondering if you could take us back to the beginning of your endo journey before we go into your business.
Yeah. So I was diagnosed with endometriosis in August 2023, but like prior to that, a lot like a lot of other women out there, I was struggling with like women's health issues for a while,
Uh-huh.
not really like having any answers, not really knowing what any of them was really. Like honestly, even just before my diagnosis, I didn't really know what endometriosis was, or what it meant.
Really?
I definitely didn't find there was a lot of helpful information out there. I got diagnosed with polycystic ovary syndrome first, and then I was having a lot of issues like surrounding my periods, and obviously like
Yep.
really bad pain and things like that throughout the month. Like I was struggling with infertility and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, I just kind of like was just looking for something to kind of help me navigate it and stuff. So
Yeah.
that's when obviously I discovered like people creating like endometriosis and chronic illness content on social media, in particular TikTok. And that's kind
Uh-huh.
of how I really found out I had endometriosis and I had something wrong with me, because I was seeing all these other people post about it and I was like, wait, that's what I'm experiencing. So I was like, right. So I spent a bit of time like documenting everything, researching everything, and I was like, right, I'm going to go and try and pursue to get some help, to get some like a diagnosis or something. And even up until like the point I was having my surgery, they really didn't think it was endometriosis. They really didn't think it was anything to worry about. They generally thought it was just my weight. And when I lost weight, be able
Oh,
to get pregnant, and my endometrio and obviously all my pain that I now know as endometriosis wouldn't be there. But I had my surgery and they found endometriosis, and obviously they no longer thought it was those other things. So then I just kind of had to learn and navigate what endometriosis meant and then how to live
yep.
with it basically.
So this was in 2023.
Yep.
You know, that's actually, I'm just so sad to hear that. Well, firstly, about your fertility. I mean, that's the main thing. But that's actually, it's just heartbreaking because it mirrors what happened to me. And that was in 2008. So, what are we like, 2003, about 15 years on? And I feel on paper things say we're progressing, but they're not really. If 15 years later you're in the same position, you hadn't even heard of it. I hadn't heard of it. I had symptoms from 14. I was in hospital with burst cysts. I was on prescribed medication every month, but still, it was just never mentioned. And then it was actually a friend of my mum's that saw me while I had my period, and she said, "That's not normal. Like, you shouldn't be in that much pain." And that was how I then ended up in and out and in and out of A&E, and they kept thinking it was appendicitis. But I'm just so shocked, not shocked, but sad
Mm.
to hear that that's been your experience 15 years later. Like, I just thought that was because obviously I'm older. What age are you, Laura?
I'm 28.
You're 28, yeah. So I'm 12 years older than you, and you've experienced something that is so similar, and it just shouldn't be like that anymore. I mean, I think all the pages are excellent and they're so informative, and they obviously weren't there in 2008. However, everyone should know about it. And it's just heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And I don't like the fact, sorry, I need to get this in here because everything, they just blame everything on weight.
Yeah.
And it's just so sad, Laura. I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's
So,
it's difficult because obviously as well, like you were saying, like, when you're younger and stuff, especially like
uh-huh,
depending on what generation you come from as well, there's going to be people in your family or people that have been part of your upbringing that probably doesn't even know what it means either. So it's just a
yes.
lack of education in every kind of aspect, like in terms of generations and stuff. And I'm definitely hoping, like especially like this generation now, obviously there's a lot more awareness about it,
Yep.
which definitely is amazing because hopefully that is the guidance for young girls out there to kind of follow.
Absolutely, and that's why we're all doing what we're doing and spreading the words, because it just shouldn't be like that anymore as recent as 2003. And did they do any surgery for you to take it out?
So I had a laparoscopy surgery and I
Uh-huh.
was under the impression it was going to be an excision surgery. But to be honest, I look back now and this is why I always talk about it when I make videos for like raising awareness and like helping others.
Hmm.
I always say that I definitely did not ask enough questions. I didn't go into that surgery knowing really what was going on or what I should ask or shouldn't ask. So obviously I didn't
Yes.
ask the right questions. So obviously now I know going into it, I would only have a surgery from an endometriosis specialist. I wouldn't be accepting a surgery from anyone else. Whereas obviously to start with, I didn't
Yep.
know that. So I had a surgery with a regular gynae, and obviously she performed ablation, not excision.
Ugh.
And I didn't know that until obviously after the surgery. Like, I had no idea. And then I obviously got told I had endometriosis, and basically the only thing they could do was to either put me on medical menopause or for me to have the coil, both of which was
Right.
not an option for me because obviously we was struggling with fertility, so why would we
Yep.
go down that route? So then they kind of just discharged me. I then was having pain, within 2-3 months after that surgery. Was pain I didn't ever really experience. So I started to have like sciatica pain, I was having really bad leg pain, I was having pain in different areas, and it was like, my periods were so much more debilitating than they ever was. And I was so confused because I was like, how is this, how have I had this surgery to kind of help the
Uh-huh.
endometriosis, and somehow I now feel worse from it? So then I obviously started advocating for myself even more, and obviously just like banging drums until someone would listen to me. And then I got
Yep.
I got sent to an endometriosis specialist, and I had some further testing done. And now I'm on a waiting list to see whether they're going to look into a second surgery or to kind of explore if endometriosis has infiltrated my bowels, because obviously that's what they think is going on. My
Right.
symptoms, what's going on in my
Uh-huh.
life and stuff. But it's just been a nightmare really getting from that like A to B, because I had a laparoscopy. They was just like, you shouldn't be struggling now. It's kind of fine.
Yeah, like you've had one, so that's it now. Yep.
And that's kind of like what they was doing, and they wouldn't refer me to a specialist to start with. And then I knew my rights, and I was like, I know I can be referred to one, and I know I can have a second opinion if I want to. And then that's when they kind of referred me. And the specialist I've been seeing, she's great. She's a really great specialist, but I have been waiting over a year to see her again. So it's just
Yep.
like, it's just the backlog of obviously loads of women out there struggling, I think.
That's the problem. That's the absolute problem. Years ago, I was told that they couldn't deal with what was going on with me. It was stage 4, and I did have bowel involvement, and my ovaries were like stuck to the back of my womb and my bowel and my bladder. So I had a frozen pelvis in stage 4. So they did refer me to Glasgow, where there's a specialist centre. There's 2 in Scotland. But it meant that my wait was much longer. But they did put me on Prostat, which was the medical menopause. But because the wait was so long, I was on that for 10 months. And then that had an impact on my mental health. Like, I felt very emotional and just hormonal and unstable
Mm-hmm.
to a point on it that it affected every part of my life. And then again, moving forward to the hysterectomy I just had, was the same surgeon, but it took me 2 years to get seen by him for the consultation. And then I was put on a 2-year waiting list. So to see that surgeon, it took 4 years. And they did, bring COVID into it and things like that. But I don't think so it was a 4-year wait to get to the specialist.
Mm-hmm.
And that was in a situation where again everything was all stuck together. They had done the MRI and said, like, we just can't deal with this at my local hospital. So it wasn't even a case of me saying, well, I want excision surgery and choosing to wait. It was they couldn't do it, but I still had to wait that length of time. And I'm like, this is totally unacceptable.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really just sad to hear that the pain came back so quickly for you, Laura, and about the sciatic pain. So at the moment, are you just waiting for more surgery then?
Yeah, really. I don't really. I am kind of in a bit of a limbo really with it, because a lot of people will say to me, how do you kind of manage? What do you kind of do? And sometimes
Yep.
I sit there and I will give my recommendations, I'll give my advice, but honestly, I feel like sometimes you just really don't know, and I think you're just navigating it day by day. Like, I would, people would say
Yes.
to me, like, try contraception, try medical menopause. And maybe if I wasn't at that point in my life where, I wanted to be a mom one day, maybe I would go down that route. But obviously for
Uh-huh.
now, it's frustrating because things do work for some women and things don't work for others. So I always say, like, it's very much down to that the independent life of that person. So for instance, medical
Yeah,
menopause might work for you, but it might not work for me. But it doesn't mean neither one of us should explore that. It's really, really is based on what you need. And I always say to people, just because I'm not doing
absolutely.
medical menopause or contraception or having a hysterectomy does not mean I'm trying to not help myself. I'm just trying to manage it in a way where I don't have to go down the route of having multiple surgeries, a hysterectomy, or putting all these like hormones into my body. So at the moment, it
Yes.
is literally just I'm trying to lose weight, see whether I can get any fertility help on the NHS, because currently my BMI is too high. So they've rejected our fertility referral 3 times now. So they just don't want to know because our weight is too high.
Laura, sorry to interrupt you, but that's shocking.
Yeah.
That's not okay at all. I mean, that surprises me because to me you don't even look like the level that would be an issue, and that is so sad. So what do they want your BMI to be at?
So I can't remember exactly what it is, but I think for IVF, I think it's 29 on the NHS. My BMI is currently 35. My BMI was 40 when I had my first surgery, and I have lost like 4.5 stone now.
Oh, well done.
Which, I am really proud of, and obviously someone who has PCOS and endometriosis. A lot of people out there will know how difficult it is to lose weight when you're struggling with like hormonal imbalances and chronic pain and stuff. To them, I'm still very overweight, and that is a contributing factor to why I can't get like surgeries, help with fertility, all that kind of stuff. I got told I was allowed to have a second surgery if I got my weight down, if I got my BMI down to 35. Obviously, it's down to that now. They should obviously perform another surgery, but there's been so many different like things I've had to meet in order to get these things, which is also another challenge and obstacle that when you're dealing with everything else, that as in itself is just hard to deal with. Like weight loss in itself, like some women out there can lose weight like that. Honestly, it's really not hard for them. For me, like I struggle with weight loss and weight gain all the time, and that's because my hormones are fluctuating so much.
Yes, it is. I'm exactly the same, Laura.
Yeah.
I find it hard to lose weight, or I find it really easy, then I put it back on, and I just don't feel like when you're dealing with something like fertility, emotionally, the last thing we need to be doing is worrying about weight constantly, where we're then feeling like it's our own fault of, and feeling like being made to feel like, oh, well, you're not actually thin enough to have this treatment or that treatment. And it's not acceptable. I do understand like risk factors and things like that, but that's not the level of weight that we're talking about here. It's just, it's a hard time emotionally. I struggled. I have got one child, and I did struggle with fertility and miscarriages. I was slim at the time, and I worried that it was happening because I was too thin. I think we have enough going on, and we beat ourselves up about it, and all that pressure that's on you is just it's not great. And are they giving you support? I mean, you've done amazing. You've done absolutely amazing. You've lost all that weight, but did they support you to do that?
No, like I got sent a healthy living website from the NHS on how to live a healthy life, and make sure you're eating 5 a day and exercising. That is literally all I got sent. They literally did not help me at all with anything. They've spoke about, like, for instance, when I had my aftercare like appointment from my laparoscopy, my gynecologist at the time was basically suggesting things like bariatric surgery and all that kind of stuff, which at that time to me was so wild, because at that point, like you said, I never really thought I was at that stage where I would need something like that. So
no, you're not.
Yeah, so for me, I was shocked, and my boyfriend was with me, and I definitely started taking him to all these appointments, which is what I say to so many women out there. Take someone with you to advocate for you in those appointments, because it is amazing what they learn. My boyfriend definitely had heard me talk about things in appointments, but, he'd never really experienced it. And that moment where there was talking about all this kind of stuff in terms of like bariatric surgery in order to conceive and stuff like that, he was absolutely like baffled. He was like, why do they suggest these things? This is just so unhelpful. And I was like, well, welcome to the world of trying to navigate women's health. This is what you get. So
yes,
it's just,
and it's actually it's a huge contradiction as well, Laura. They're saying, you're too big for the operation, but we'll give you an operation to give you vaginal surgery. I mean, it's absolutely wild.
Yeah.
It's so hard. So what was the moment, do you think, that was your ping moment? Like, no, like, I'm speaking out about this. I've had enough.
I think it was in that post-op appointment. So I started documenting the journey anyway. So for instance, I was doing like my top 10 laparoscopy essentials or packing essentials, and I was kind of doing things like that. but I wasn't really going into like the depths of advocacy and the depths of the issues and my experience and stuff at that time because I was still navigating it. But when I had that post-op appointment, we walked away from that appointment and I was heartbroken. I was so upset. I was so disappointed because I was like, oh my God, like I have fought for
Yeah.
so long for this diagnosis and to get answers, and now I've got it. And now I've just been left to my own devices and there's no help, there's no support. Like, what else is happening to like the other women around the world? What are other people
Yep.
experiencing? There's going to be somebody maybe like me who's a bit naive going into it and didn't know what to ask. So I was like, I need to do something. I was like, I need to do something. So that's just when I started sharing everything, to start with. There was no
Yeah.
strategy. There was absolutely nothing. I was just coming online, sharing my experience, the good, bad and the ugly, and I just went with it.
I love it. Yep.
It worked,
Absolutely love it.
and I
And I
built this
feel,
amazing community of women that obviously still are here to this day, and it grows every day. And it's just, I've learned so much, and obviously I'm helping them as well. And it's just, I look at it and go, we're providing such a service that like I don't think doctors or the NHS could ever provide, because we are literally being that ear and that person for people that are struggling. And that's just what they, I suppose they don't have the resources to do all of that, but sometimes
but they should be.
yeah,
They should be. I'm always talking about how these hormones or the impact, the psychological impact affects our mental
oh
health
yeah,
and things like
definitely,
that.
yeah,
And there's no support, even post hysterectomy. Nobody's at, and me, well, ovaries are gone as well now. I
yeah,
lost one in my 20s, but the other one's gone now. And I went on HRT. I am 40, so I feel, oh my God, how am I that old? But I'm still young in terms of I could have had another 10 years before the menopause,
yeah.
but nobody has asked me if I'm okay. Like a medical professional has not said, how are you mentally with the HRT? There's been no checkup on that. There's been no, and I'm like, this is strange. I feel like there should be psychological support available. Not everyone would want it or need it. And I know the NHS is strained, but I did see actually last night in the NICE guideline that it should be available. But this is the thing, people aren't getting told because
No.
they don't want us to know. And that's why people like yourself go to these events and talking and letting people know, oh, I'm entitled to that, or that's normal, or I'm not alone. It's just so validating as well as informing.
Like, I didn't
But
know, like, you could even, like, you was entitled to a second opinion until a few years ago. I had no idea. And some people say, like, oh, that's really silly. Like, of course you're entitled to a second opinion. I'm like, you say it's silly, but unless you're in a situation where you are literally fighting for your life within the medical system, sometimes the most obvious things aren't obvious because they don't make it obvious. Like you says, they don't tell you things. They don't
yep.
give you guidelines on where you should go if you're not happy about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the difficulty.
Yeah, I mean, until a couple of weeks ago, I thought that I was only referred to that specialist centre in Glasgow because of how severe my endo was.
Yeah.
But I now know that everybody's entitled to be referred there.
Yeah.
Or to actually anyone that they choose in the whole of the UK. So why do we, you're like, you know what I mean? Like, why did we not know this? And
Yeah.
it's because we're not being told. Nobody's telling us. That's why we don't know.
That's the difficult thing as well, because obviously sometimes you can see like doctors will say like don't believe everything you see online, and sometimes it can be quite like conflicting, and that's true. There can definitely be some unhelpful advice out there, and I definitely do believe doctors are trained, that they are the professionals. However, there is definitely a big like imbalance between like what we deserve to know and what we should know
Yes.
in comparison to what they tell us. And I think that's where the imbalance is, because they don't like the fact that people are turning to like social media and advocacy and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
People wouldn't have to do that if they was being listened to, heard, and they had the resources in the first place.
Do you know, I'm not laughing because it's funny. It's just you are spot on.
Mm.
That is exactly. They don't want us all to know what we're entitled to, because then what happens?
Yeah.
Then what happens? Everybody wants help for their mental health. Everybody wants to go to a specialist centre for excision surgery, and then they can't cope. So they don't want us to know. And I've heard this term a lot recently about medical
Yeah.
gaslighting, and I'm not like yourself. I do respect that the doctors know what they're doing and all of that, but I feel like it's a strong term. But then sometimes I'm like, no, I think it is quite sometimes appropriate. Like now you said about your sciatic nerve. So for the whole time I had pain in my sciatic nerve area on the left hand side. It wasn't radiating down my leg and it wasn't too uncomfortable, but when I had my period, I had this pain as if, there was endometriosis there
Yeah.
and it was bleeding. And I mentioned this and I was told no, because I'd had an MRI.
Yeah.
And they said, well, no, because it would have showed up on your MRI. So I'm now like just over 6 weeks post-op and I hadn't had a period for a few weeks before that. So say I've not had a period for about 2 months and this pain's gone.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, go figure. But then at the same time, if it didn't show up in the MRI, what they going to do? But they need to listen to what
Yeah.
we're saying. I'm saying this is only sore when I have my period, so it's got to be related.
Yeah.
But yes, so tell us more about your events, Laura, because sadly I've not been to one. And I want to hear all about it.
Yeah, no, and definitely I intend to do a Scotland event, so you can definitely attend one.
Amazing, I'll be there.
So obviously I started Your Endo Events. So Your Endo Events is designed for women's health, wellness, empowerment, in particular for people that are struggling with endometriosis, PCOS, people that are undiagnosed, diagnosed, trying to navigate the women's healthcare system in general, but also just to build a community for people to gain education, resources, friendship, all that kind of stuff. And the first event
Amazing.
that was so amazing. Like I had about 40 women page on my Instagram page that had been supporting me from the beginning. So obviously I met some of the girls that I met on the app.
Oh, that's lovely. Yep.